Pax vobiscum salvete omnes, my name is Father Mislav, and you're watching a second part of the first part of every faction of Warhammer 40k re-explained by Bricky. Grab some popcorn, some drink, and join the ride. So welcome back to the second part. I hope you were eagerly expecting this next sequel and the reaction to Bricky. I know I was. Why? Because now we're starting with the real meat, with the Imperium of Man. I think that is the topic that is most complicated because, of course, it covers man. We can all relate the most. And naturally, I think there is the number of the lore, the actual depth of the lore that exists within the Warhammer 40k about the Imperium of Man should be, I think so, should be most expansive, the largest, right? And I know that I already have some good suggestions about other videos covering the Imperium of Man, all different kinds of Space Marine chapters, etc. And I am already opting for some of them. As you already may know, we will be doing a tier list at the end of this whole reaction. I mean, part 1 and part 2. And I believe each of those part 1 and part 2 will have 2 parts. And this is the second part of the first part, right? So, the commentary, of course, will be an honest commentary. I'm blind to most of this. I know some things, so I can fill in the void, fill the gaps. But your comments and your explanations help a lot. Sometimes they're contradictory, but that's fine for me. It also is a sign how some information within the Warhammer 40k are contradictory in themselves. Bricky is a fun guy. He wants to popularize 40k, and he manages to do so. He's not the most in-depth lore type of a person, and that's not what I'm seeking currently, because a lot of you were like, no, why are you reacting to him? He makes stuff up. Maybe he does sometimes. That's okay. I take everything with a grain of salt, whether this type of content or something else. That's fine for me. I just want to have a larger view, a broader view of all the factions that exist within the Warhammer 40k. And then I will be going deeper in those that I like the most. I think you will enjoy that in a special kind of way, but with time. Now we're just scratching on the surface. So join me in my first scratching on the Warhammer surface. Let's roll.
Before the fall of the Eldar, Earth, or Terra, as it's called, was in ruin. One man who looks to put the pieces back together. Where did he come from? We don't know. Some say he was the result of early shamans. Some say he is the final Old One who escaped their species' genocide. And those that are smartest know the answer is, it doesn't matter. He revealed himself as the Emperor of Mankind, and he was tasked with the most monumental upheaval of humanity possible. The Eldari's warp fluctuations had turned the golden age of humanity into old night. Interstellar travel cut off? Check. An AI uprising? Check. Brand new psychers popping up and not knowing how to handle their powers? Oh, check. Demonic incursions? Check. Thousands of years this occurred, and now the Emperor of Mankind showed himself to put the pieces back together. Unifying Terra under his rule, the Emperor founded the Imperium of Man and ruled it with an iron fist. He was the supreme leader and nothing could stand against him. He wished to remove mankind from the yoke of its former failures, and he knew he would be the best leader they could have because he was...
Okay, so he was not active within the development of humanity most of the time. He just took control in the most dire of times, when the circumstances were just atrocious. Am I correct in this? But he is like a very ancient and almost like immortal type of a figure. No one knows when he came from, but I think in one of the maybe Olenius Pius video or something like that. It was mentioned that Olenius Pius, at least in one part of the canon, I don't know, was something similar to the Emperor, an ancient, very ancient being that does not simply end his life the normal way as others do. And the Emperor is a psychic, so he can manipulate the warp, so he is very powerful, right? So at one point in history, he united mankind under one rule, taking control, because in his view, that was the only way to save humanity and to provide them with some future, I guess.
Right. AI banned. Religion banned.
Oh, okay.
You did as the Emperor told you, or his Thunder Warriors would put you in your place. That place often being a grave. Now, Terra was thriving, but humanity needed to...
Interesting. Banning specific things like religion and AI. Two very different things, that's for sure. And the Thunder Warriors taking control or you die. That's eerily reminding me of some events during the half of the 20th century.
reclaim its long-lost brethren scattered across the stars. But to do so, he needed those that could build him a fleet truly meant for the reconquering of the galaxy. And so he turned his attention to the red planet of Mars.
Adeptus Mechanicus.
Mars and Terra were close allies long before the Unification Wars. Mars was the first world terraformed by humanity and became what would ultimately be the first hive world, an epicenter for industry and technology. The Age of Strife did not treat the Red Planet kindly, however. Mars was cut off from Terra during this time, and the warp storms that ravaged...
Is this how Mars looks like right now? It doesn't resemble itself at all. It's just like a machine world completely. It's like a Death Star. Incredible.
The planet turned it into an absolute nuclear hellscape. Those who were on the surface were turned into your run-of-the-mill mutant if they even survived the bombings they inflicted on themselves, but others were lucky enough to escape beneath the red sands in powerful fallout shelters. These became their generational habitats, but this resulted in extreme reliance on
This resulted in very cool weaponry. I think my Pascal from Rogue Trader CRPG has an axe very similar to this one, maybe identical. It's a very, very good design. Weapon design.
And those who could use it. They began to view the technology keeping them alive less as a technological advancement and more of a divine intervention, with those skilled in it as priests. The Martians began to worship the power of the machine, and this resulted in the formation of the cult Mechanicus, the belief in a holy trinity known as the Three-in-One. The machine god, serving as the spirit who gave rise to all technologies known, the motive force, the deity that gives all life its ability to live, and the Omnissiah, a physical manifestation of the machine god itself. This belief
That's the
began
Emperor. Yeah, that's all. This is very interesting. Of course, it's a we could say a perversion of the most holy trinity within the Christian belief system, right? So there's one God in three divine persons. That's what it means to believe in Trinity. Still, one God, but three divine persons within one God. Now, Adeptus Mechanicus somehow inverted that because they started worshipping the machine, which is not that unusual, because if everything that you're doing all day, your whole life, is related to the machines, in a way you are already worshipping them. You know, take this as an interesting thought experiment. Try to analyze what you're doing the most during each day, each week, each month. You know, the amount of hours that you spend doing the most on something. And not only that, but where your heart kind of lies, your interests, what you're thinking about the most. That's also very important. Not just mechanically doing, but really putting your mind to it. And that's a very good indication about what god you're really worshipping, you know? So where our heart, where our minds, thoughts lie the most, that is basically the god that we are worshipping from a psychological standpoint. So for the Adeptus Mechanicus, for that whole legion of people, the hive world, billions and upon billions of people over there. So it was kind of actually expected for them to become machine worshippers in a way, but for them to develop that kind of so what did they say, machine god, the motive spirit. Let me just backtrack a little bit.
Holy Trinity, known as the Three-in-One, the Machine God,
serving
as the spirit who gave rise to all technologies known,
Okay.
the Motive Force,
Motive
the
Force.
deity that gives all life its ability to live, and the Omnissiah.
So motive force, of course, is like a play on the Holy Spirit, but within this weird reality, it would be basically just, what, electricity. The motive force here for the machine spirit, I think just electricity. It's so funny.
A physical manifestation
And the Omnissiah, of course, the play on the Messiah, Mashiach, on Hebrew, right? I'm not sure if it's Aramaic or Hebrew. It's very similar, though. But yeah, Jesus Christ, the Messiah, at least from the Christian perspective, he is the Messiah who already came. And we're expecting his second coming, while the Jews and, in a way, a lot of other belief systems in the world are still awaiting for the coming of their, well, Messiah, savior figure. In Christianity, we would kind of call that figure that will come an antichrist, maybe. But that's a topic for another day. Let's continue with the reaction.
Of the machine god itself. This belief began to manifest in them physically as well. What were once humans began to really mess around with the character creator options, and this tech obsession made them view instances of flesh to be weak and spend their lives removing what makes them human.
Yeah, basically grafting machine onto the flesh. Transhumanist movement on Mars.
And replacing it with mechanical augments. Robotic limbs, glowing eyes, mechadendrite arms. What was once a mass of flesh now looks like the back of a router. And the oldest members of the Mechanicus no longer even look slightly human. In addition to this, cloaked over all of their mechanical appendages are robes that reflect the color of their homeworld, the red robes of the Mechanicus. The Cult Mechanicum, now the Adeptus Mechanicus, create a fascinating combination of cultures all birthed into one. Basically, techno-zealot monks. Organic life is the machine god's greatest accomplishment within the scope of the great work. All praise he who is three in one. By giving us life within an organic shell, he presents us with the means and opportunity to improve upon physicality, as is his divine plan. He grants us complex weakness so we might learn metallic strength and ascend to his level of machinic perfection.
That's an interesting quote. Okay, I presume that is like canon. So they are kind of grateful for their flesh, for their body, but they view it as something that is still bad. So they're happy to be familiarized with something that is weak in order for them to get to know progressively something that is better and perfect. There's something, of course it's weird and perverted, but there's something good and interesting about that, gotta say.
The Emperor's arrival to Mars was very much a walking in with the pizzas while the room is on fire moment, but to the Mechanicum, they saw his arrival as confirmation of their belief. They took one look at the glowing golden entity that showed up on their doorstep and were like, that's him. That's the guy right there. And they immediately accepted him as the Omnissiah. Obviously, showing up and being called Machine Jesus shortly after wiping out all instances of non-Machine Jesus a little bit beforehand is an instance of capital H heresy. But the Emperor saw the bigger picture. Were they strange with how they rubbed unguents on themselves, burned incense, and prayed to machines for them to work? Sure.
So the Emperor is like, I ban all AI, I ban all religion, and then we have Adeptus Mechanicus, very powerful faction, without which Emperor cannot do. And so he's, okay, I allow AI, or something very similar to it. I allow worshipping, if it's worshipping me. Emperor, aren't you contradicting your value system a little bit here? Maybe I'm missing some nuances, though.
But that's a lot of production right there. So the Emperor devised the Treaty of Olympus Mons, a unifying agreement between Terra and Mars.
Okay.
And this union would be permanently etched into the Aquila of the Imperium as the two-headed eagle.
Oh yeah,
One
okay.
head for Terra, the other for Mars. The forces of the Emperor will be supplied with all the technology and weapons they needed to reunite the scattered remnants of humanity under one banner. And the Mechanicum of Mars will be able to keep doing what they were doing religiously and scientifically, so long as they kept up their tithes.
Okay. You give us weapons, and as long as you do that, you can believe what you want, as long as that belief is in the Emperor. And as long as you are loyal and faithful, yeah, we allow it. Okay.
This
I'm starting to
tithe
understand it.
meant total quality control over all technology in the Imperium. Is it a big spaceship? AdMech take care of that. Tanks? AdMech take care of that. The literal bullets in a gun? You guessed it. But unlike the factories of today, the forge worlds of Mars and the creations of the Mechanicum are a bit of a different experience.
Yeah, the whole world is one factory in a way, right? And they can produce much larger stuff. I mean, like spaceships, of course, are much larger stuff, but also like ground weaponry. The Titans, maybe they are the biggest weapons that can walk on any planet, I believe.
Altogether. Instead of a factory on a random given world, the entirety of the planet's surface is dedicated to manufacturing. But
Crazy.
that's a little tricky, isn't it?
That's
Considering that the
crazy.
usage of silica animus, or AI, is a big no-no, and basically the largest affront to their divine machine god possible. Fortunately, there's a really neat alternative that they've come up with, and that's called a servitor. Incredible devices that can do anything from manufacturing, maintenance, basic door operation, even just float around like a helpful little drone. It's an extremely easy process too. All you need to do is take a human who is dying, or preferably an enemy of the state, most likely that one, and lobotomize them, and then reprogram their brains to do exactly what they tell you. They even got little baby versions of them. Yay!
Yeah, I saw that in Hell's Reach movie when I was reacting to that. I was first like, oh, this is interesting. What is the symbol of a baby with angels? That must have some deeper meaning. And then you... Then you just reacted, no, oh god, no. No, that's a servitor, baby. So, yeah. Warhammer is dark. Warhammer is very dark. The part with the baby is absolutely disgusting, actually. So, full-on condemnation. The Inquisition would burn that. It's just that in this world, the Inquisition actually tolerates it, maybe even more. I'm not sure, actually. What is the opinion of the people or people in power within Warhammer world about these kind of practices? For the servitors, yeah, I mean, I don't like it either, but it's not as bad as it is with the children, that's for sure. Okay, continue.
So now you can rest easy knowing that the entirety of the Imperium, because they outlaw AI and learning new tech is heresy, is run on lobotomized slaves. Whether they deserve it or not is unimportant, and whether they can still keep their consciousness trapped in their own minds is another thing entirely.
Another thing entirely, and that is why I'm already seeing within the Rogue Trader game problems with that, right? Because it seems that there are multiple instances where servitors actually have regained their consciousness. They have memories. They're not functioning on 100% of their brain capacity, of course, they were lobotomized. But it's not like the person is not there anymore. The person simply cannot function as it functioned before. The person is still there. Within our worldview, within my Christian way of looking at things, I can easily make the connection about the human intellect and will being purely immaterial realities. The spiritual part of the soul, completely the spiritual part, which of course operates through the material parts of the soul and just the purely material part, the body. So the memories would be something in between the immaterial and the material, connected to our intellect, which makes abstractions, which are purely immaterial, like spiritual realities. But doesn't matter, not to go astray right now. Within Warhammer, it would seem that even there, after lobotomizing people, there is still the person inside, the remnant of a person at least. Like on the pirate funeral, a couple of episodes back on Rogue Trader, on the City of Footfall, there was like a big pirate funeral and a whole episode, an interesting story, a very fun detective story to find out what was happening and where did the dead pirate leave his inheritance. So there was a servitor basically who was behind a lot of these things. With a fun backstory, which you had to uncover by truly speaking with everyone and playing a little bit of detective. So anyway, the servitor, even after lobotomized, could perceive reality in a specific way, was aware of stuff that was happening. And the question is, of course, how many of the servitors are on that level within the world? Are they just in a constant, infinite loop of pain while living and serving as those servitors, but they cannot do anything else, just to be obedient and serve and do the functions that they're commanded? I don't know. Very weird and very dark part of the universe, and part of the Imperium, which I do not approve at all. What's this game?
Your incompetence is showing.
An excerpt from the Servitor Creation Factories. Naked human beings were standing in a switch-packed line between high fences. The manufactorum produced servitors, but it was more akin to an abattoir than a workshop. Every surface was easily cleanable. Servitors with spray units surgically attached to their backs prowled about, hosing filth from slit drains set into the perfectly smooth, slanted floors. As the line slowly advanced, the people were passed through various scanning devices, most of them mounted in ugly, functional arches that let out a constant series of acceptance chimes. Occasionally, one would let out an angry blare, and the indicator lumens would flash red. The rejected person was then swallowed up by a trapdoor opening beneath their feet. From these pits wafted a hideous stench and the grinding sounds of industrial mincers. One rejected man grabbed onto the lip and hung there, arms and hands bloodied, shouting a stream of defiant profanities. Guards lined the grating either side of him and shocked him until he fell. The adepts wouldn't even waste bullets on these people. The trapdoor flipped up, and the next terrified person was ushered forward. Violent metal arms snatched them up and spread-eagled them in the air, and a servitor shearer shaved them all over. At another, they were subjected to a high-pressure counterseptic wash whose chemical stink made me choke from 100 feet away. More scanners, more rejects winnowed out. Machines forcibly dressed them in a heavy, rubberized garment common to all monotask servitors. These were saggy on them, all one size, until another process force-shrank them to fit their bodies, where metal cuffs, sockets, and collars bit into vulnerable flesh. The last few prayers gave way to screams at that point, and even the most stoic shouted in pain. They were ushered over a floor, buzzing with power that made them shriek with every footstep. "What's that for?" I asked. "Follicular inhibitor, to stop their hair from growing." he said. Freaking sweet, Lois! As for their scientific pursuits, the Mechanicum believe
Crazy.
in the preservation of knowledge above all and the quest to expand it. However, as opposed to just innovating and inventing on their own with their vast technological know-how, they believe that it is a form of tech heresy. You see, because of their religious viewpoints on technology itself, they believe that the instruction booklet itself is just as holy as the Lego set it builds, and to innovate on that without the proper written knowledge is to go against the divine word of the machine god itself. All knowledge is all
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of the Bible. You know, you cannot add something or subtract something from the Holy Scripture. Why? Jesus himself actually said that, you know? But yeah, this definitely is a take on the whole Scripture. And it does kind of make sense, of course. The instruction manual and what you're building with it is on the same level of sacredness. It makes sense, of course. One is like a potential, and other is the realization of that potential. Those two are very much connected realities. One is always directed to the other, and the other cannot exist without the one. Yeah.
already in the universe. You simply need to rediscovering it and attempting to invent something to improve upon divinity is very heretical. Prior to the Age of Strife, humanity was able to populate the
Wait a second. Does that mean that there is no technological progress whatsoever? Or just very, very slow technological progress?
stars with devices known as Standard Template Constructs, or STCs. These devices were, as far as we know, supercomputers with the ability to pull up and detail how to create literally anything a startup colony would need. Essentially, they were devices with the entirety of human technological know-how so that you could make a home away from home. The Mechanicum will not make anything without an STC. Quite literally nothing, because this is the knowledge they seek, and that knowledge is divine. One time, scouts of the Imperial Guard found a functioning STC that provided the schematics on a knife that happened to be a bit lighter and a bit sharper than most other knives. These knives were adopted by 30 Space Marine chapters and were one of the most advanced discoveries of the century. This discovery was so significant that they were each awarded a planet for finding this. A planet for a machine that taught them how to make knives. Due to their religious organization, you can probably guess the Mechanicum are organized in a feudal structure with the highest individuals in power being a part of the priesthood. Cream of the crop being the fabricator general of Mars itself, who serves as a high lord of Terra, but also oversees the entirety of the Mechanicum below. Below them are tech priests that oversee the cult for the quest of knowledge and other more straightforward theocracy. Forge worlds tend to operate slightly more independently, what can cause some power struggles within the Mechanicum, because, you know, despite them all being weird robots, they love being given praise. And despite being the manufacturing end of the Imperium, they do actually have their own military force.
But they're not robots, they're still people with their human weaknesses, of course, their human vanities. It's just that they simply are enamored with machines and are replacing their organic parts with mechanical ones. Still human, though.
And despite being the manufacturing end of the Imperium, they do actually have their own military forces. They have the Skitarii Private Army and all their various 1920s Martian-style mechanisms like Doom Crawlers, Castellan robots, and of course, the Titan Legions, because nothing is cooler than a robot that towers over buildings. Ultimately, their very dogmatic view on technology as a whole has resulted in any innovation becoming absent, thus causing the Imperium to stagnate as a whole. The lack of ambition to create anything new and the wholesale murder of anyone who even tries leads to things becoming derelict. I grow weary of this flesh I was born into, strangely disgusted by its nature. I crave only the cold, clean certainty of steel and silicon, that I might become one with the blessed machine. I do not expect you to understand, you who cling to your flesh as if it were immortal, seeking only to preserve it, to protect it. One day you will see the folly of your ways, and then no doubt you will come begging to my order to preserve you. After the ground...
So, the striving of the Mechanicus section, the striving of the Adeptus Mechanicus, is merging with divinity and immortality, isn't it? It's very much something that's deeply encoded in all of us. We all want to exist. To be is good, not to be is bad. That's like the principle with which we are embedded. So the yearning for immortality is simply the yearning always to be. Okay. And the desire to unite with divinity, it's manifested in different kind of ways, but, you know, always wanting to be better, to advance, to achieve something, to go towards perfection, to one day actually be united with perfection and live inside of that perfect state forever, or continuously being even more and more perfected during that perfection, whichever way you're imagining it. But that's something deeply human about that, isn't it? Right? So the Adeptus Mechanicus simply misdirected that deeply human drive because they found their salvation or solution in the machine. Just perpetuation of their human lives here on Earth by merging with machines, with metal and silicon. So they will not, their human flesh will deteriorate, decay, and the machine will not. I mean, it will, it kind of will, just with more time, but yeah, whatever. But they can like replace parts, I guess. What is the thing behind it? The software. I presume that they want in the end to replace their human minds with completely digital binary system and speaking in, what's the name, the binaric language, I think is what they use, but completely replacing everything organic while kinda remaining humans, even though I don't think that's possible. I think a lot of people today think that it is possible, that we're slowly or fastly progressing towards that point, the singularity point of a human merging with a machine, of transmitting our brains, our minds into virtual reality, etc., etc. I think it's completely impossible with various philosophical, primarily philosophical reasons, not theological why I think so. It's a long topic though. But I think what the Adeptus Mechanicus and everyone that's inside of the faction, what they're doing is very natural in a way, even though it's manifested in a very unnatural way, transhumanistic way, right?
Work had been set unification-wise, it was time to start getting things together for the Emperor's great crusade across the stars to bring humanity under one banner. The Thunder Warriors were a perfect fighting force for unifying Terra and Luna, but the galaxy was a whole different thing. You see, these warriors weren't soldiers in the eyes of the Emperor. They were tools, extremely blunt tools, used for the fast conquest of Terra.
Yeah. The Emperor got rid of them after he used them, right?
As the Emperor was concerned, the tools you use at home aren't the same ones you take on a road trip. So the Emperor rid himself of his tools in the exact manner you think he did, and he went forward to crafting a brand new tool. One more mobile, more efficient, and ready for his next era of conquest. They shall be my finest warriors, these men who give of themselves
Astartes.
to me. Like clay, I shall mold them, and in the furnace of war forge them. They will be of iron will and steely muscle. In great armor shall I clad them, and with the mightiest guns will they be armed. They will be untouched by plague or disease. No sickness will blight them. They will have tactics, strategies, and machines so that no foe can best them in battle. They will be my bulwark against the terror. They are the defenders of humanity. They are my soul.
Space Marines, yeah. Oh, that's basically he wants to create versions of himself, the Emperor. He simply wants to be a dad, it would seem, right? Yeah. And interestingly enough, if we perceive God as a creator and that we are created in the image of God, that means that we have the spirit of the creator within ourselves. In other words, we want to create. We want to create also something or someone who is in the image of us, because that is a representation of God that's living inside of us. It's a natural, logical progression, right? So the Emperor wants to create an image of himself, and so he makes the Space Marines. But that kind of doesn't go well, doesn't it? We'll find out how and why.
And they shall know no fear. The vastness of the Milky Way galaxy meant that the Emperor needed assistance bringing everyone back to the fold. And who better to do this than himself? But since the technology to be in many places at once does not exist anymore, the Emperor decided that it was time to become a dad, the same way Geppetto did, and with far less care. It is not my son, Arkin.
Yeah.
None of them are. They are warlords, generals, tools bred to serve a purpose, just as legions were bred to serve a purpose. What a dad. The Primarch Project was started to create charismatic and unique leaders in the Imperial military. The diversity of these eventual leaders meant that each one could be specialized for certain circumstances across the galaxy. Depending on the type of conflict, one leader might be better than the other. So instead of forcing one leader to acclimate to a situation directly, it would be better to send a specialized leader and force to handle it. In order to do this, the Emperor used his genetic know-how and maybe a little bit of that forbidden stuff to create these genetically perfect gene fathers.
What's the forbidden stuff?
That had the ability to serve as his analog directly.
Maybe warp, using something from the warp. I don't know.
And also serve as the leaders of the respective Space Marine legions. All 18, that's right, all 19 of his sons were meant to be directly molded by the Emperor himself, despite their genetic differences. And they go as follows in order: Lionel Johnson, Fulgrim, Perturabo, Jagatai Khan, Lehman Russ, Rogel Dorn, Conrad Kurz, Sanguinius, Ferris Manus, Angron, Robute Gilliman, Mortarion, Magnus the Red, Horus Lupercal, Lorgar Aurelian, Vulcan, Corvus Corax, and Alfarius and Omegon. His sons.
Okay, I want to backtrack just to see the images of all of them again. I like the art.
Despite their genetic differences.
I'll try to pause on each one of them.
As follows in order: Lionel Johnson.
Lionel, okay. Like Lionel Breakheart, of course, he uses the lions. So Lionel is with a specific reason. He is very much like a medieval. He has the adornment of wings. Interesting. He looks like a paladin type of a figure.
Fulgrim.
I don't know what to think about this. Fulgrim, white hair. He looks very bohemian in his manner. I don't know. Maybe he's just like a. I don't know what's his the type of Space Marines that are under him. Did he become corrupted or not? He looks as if he's the type of person to become later on corrupted by the warp.
Perturabo.
This is he like, his whole head is in machine parts, it would seem. He looks very much distorted, unusual, not pretty, not charismatic. Maybe he's like a strong war leader in that part. I don't know. I dislike the design. Not my cup of tea, at least.
Jagatai.
Oh, that's like Genghis Khan inspiration for sure. Okay.
Khan, Lehman Russ.
One second.
Lionel Johnson, Fulgrim, Perturabo, Jagatai Khan,
Lehman Russ. Alright, he's a Viking type of a character, it would seem. He looks Nordic in the colder regions with double bladed axe, like a great axe. Okay.
Russ, Rogel,
Okay, and not much to say or think about this one.
Dorn, Conrad,
Ominous looking figure, like a Hades type of a figure, it would seem. Like ruling over the underworld.
Curse, Sanguinius,
Sanguinius. Okay, he has the emblems that are connected to the Horus, right? Maybe he's part of his retinue now. Maybe that's the reason. And he uses, what is that, a leopard skin? White leopard, something like that.
Ferris Man,
Ferris something, okay. He looks interesting. With a sword of light, an angelic type of a thing. And his eyes, are they like milky white? Right?
Angron,
Angron, yes. It would seem that he was definitely corrupted by the warp. It would seem, at least. In Warhammer world, it would not surprise me as if he's completely good and like good aligned figure with this type of a face and posture and everything, but he looks warp corrupted at least. He looks.
Robute,
Rebute, his yes, that's the Ultramarines symbol. Rebute Gilliman, he's the other than Horus, the only name that I've heard of.
Gilliman, Mortarian,
Mortarian, like with bow and arrow something. He's like the hunter type. Magnus.
Magnus,
Yes, Magnus the Red.
the
So he's a good guy, or was a good guy, and he tried to warn the Emperor about bad things happening, and by doing that, he condemned Emperor in a way to be on the Golden Throne. Because of him, bad stuff happened, but he had good intentions, right? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. He's that kind of a guy, a tragic figure, I think.
Red, Horus, Lupus,
Horus, Lupus, yeah, the wolf legions, Horus, yeah, the eye is very much always the symbol of Horus, I think. At least what I've seen so far. And he's the original fallen Astartes, or what's the name of the guys? Primarch, the first fallen Primarch, something like that.
Burkal, Lorgar,
He's like a monk from D&D type of a figure. He looks like, at first at least. But he has armor though. Monks in D&D don't have armor.
Relian, Vulcan,
Oh, that's a good design. I like it. He's like a combination of Aquaman and Magma Man, something like that. The armor is very interesting. It's from like gemstones, but he looks kind of aquatic.
Corvus, Corax,
Corvus Corax, yeah, it's like a raven type of a figure. Is that the 19th Legion? That's why he has X1, XIX, 19 in Roman numerals. His weapon of choice is something I like very much. The claws. Oh, that's cool.
and Alfarius.
Oh, he looks like full-plated Aquaman actually as well.
And Omegon. His sons, finalized and crafted to be the warriors he
Was that
needed
all of
them to
them?
be, were complete. But
I
he
don't
may
think
have
so.
decided to do a bit of dabbling with things he shouldn't have, and paid a price. Before the Primarchs were ready to go, an intervention by the gods of chaos prevented his plan from being completed as intended. Though the sources vary, the ultimate result of the Chaos God intervention was that all of the Emperor's tools were scattered throughout the galaxy at unknown places and times. Each one of his sons ended up in a completely different world.
That's because of the wife of the Emperor, or his concubine, mistress, the one through whom those children Primarchs came, something like that. I don't know the fullness of the backstory, but I think she's at least partly responsible for that.
And instead of being able to directly influence their upbringing, these children were instead forced to experience the unique nature of their respective homeworlds. Some had a great time and lived in general luxury. Others,
Okay.
not so much. Despite his closest advisor, Malkador the Sigilite, saying, "All right, Chief, let's try this one again," the Emperor sensed each of his sons were still very much alive. And one of the primary objectives of the Great Crusade shifted to reclaiming each of his sons so they could take command of their specific Space Marine legions and carry out his will. These original Space Marine legions that were created alongside their Primarchs go in order: the Dark Angels, Emperor's Children, Iron Warriors, White Scars, Space Wolves, Imperial Fists, Night Lords, Blood Angels, Iron Hands, World Eaters, Ultramarines, Death Guard, Thousand Sons, Luna Wolves, eventually Sons of Horus, the Word Bearers, Salamanders, Raven Guard, and the Alpha Legion. Horus.
Just checking one thing.
The Word Bearers,
Salamanders. We saw salamanders in House Reach. There were something like a very good guys. They are always working on protecting the civilians, and they have their black skin and red eyes because of the mutation. Was it the planet they come from, or because of the process of them becoming salamanders? I don't know, but there's a specific reason why they have the countenance that they have. As you guys told me, the design is just beautiful here. That's probably the Primarch, right, of the salamanders. But oh wow, that's very nice design. Beautiful art. The combination of the maul, or two-handed warhammer, sledgehammer, with the, what is it, like a salamander head on it. Well, that's very creative. And the combination of the gold and the green colors is very eye-appealing. I would like to know more about this chapter for sure.
Raven Guard, and the Alpha Legion.
Where were the Black Templars? Did I miss them somehow? Once again.
Dark Angels.
Once again.
That were created alongside their Primarchs go in order: the Dark Angels, Emperor's Children, Iron Warriors, White Scars, Space Wolves, Imperial Fists, Night Lords, Blood Angels, Iron Hands, World Eaters, Ultramarines, Death Guard, Thousand Sons, Luna Wolves, eventually Sons of Horus, the Word Bearers, Salamanders, Raven Guard, and the Alpha Legion.
Okay, so Black Templars are not here. That means there is a specific backstory for them. They are not the original Space Marine chapter.
Space Marines, unlike their gene fathers, the Primarchs, are not made in a vat. There is a process to recruit more members from humanity itself, which seems a bit strange considering how massive a Space Marine is compared.
This is a beautiful animation. Where is this from?
To a normal man, but don't forget, the Emperor is really good with genetics. Less good with anesthetic, however. These prospects are recruited across humanity from various reasons and methods, and are generally killed during that process. But sometimes they aren't, and they are able to go through more and more of the actual training to assess certain traits that are important and relevant to being a Space Marine. Most of the time, the common factor is a pure, unrelenting willingness to kill the enemies of the Imperium. After going through psychological screening, the prospect, now called a neophyte, goes under the knife to become a Space Marine.
Okay.
And here is a quick list of all the cool new stuff they get genuinely shoved into their bodies. A secondary heart, an organ that makes your bones grow, an organ that makes your muscles big, an implant that makes your blood stronger, a little organ that turns your white blood cells into super white blood cells, a brain implant that allows you to sleep while being awake, a pre-stomach that allows you to digest literally anything, a spinal implant that allows you to absorb the genetic memories of what you eat, bigger and better lungs that can let you breathe underwater, an implant that gives you stronger eyes, new ears that keep you from being dizzy, a brain implant that lets you go into suspended animation if you're in a bad shape, skin that acts like transition glasses, I almost got it in one take.
Skin that acts as transition glasses. I'm not sure what he thinks about that, what he means about that.
A brand new kidney, the ability to taste the air and find enemies like a bloodhound, a special coating
Wow.
on your skin that allows you to be protected in space, the ability to spit acid, a gland that allows you to absorb the unique genetic makeup from the gene seed in the first place, and a straight up carapace that allows the Space Marine to interface with their power armor directly. Quite often, these are put inside of you at dubious levels of mental alertness and dubious levels of anesthetic. After a more generalized indoctrination into the faith of the Imperium and a bit more training and other important manners, they can finally be welcomed as a fully fledged Space Marine.
How old are they usually when they become neophytes? Should they already be fully developed humans, like grown men, or still at a specific stage of development? Does that influence the embedding of the new organs within the body?
A Space Marine is quite literally a walking tank that is armed to the teeth. Two of the more iconic weapons held by a Space Marine are their bolt gun, which fires explosive shells the size of soda cans, and a chain sword, which is... The Space Marine is clad in a colorful carapace known as power armor.
Okay, before the power armor, just a thought about the chainsword. It's a really cool weapon. It's an awesome weapon, but in reality, I think it's completely impractical. And I'm amazed how the Games Workshop or whoever was first imagining it, developing it, the creative mind behind the chainsword, how it was able to sell to the public. I mean, within the fantasy world, of course, I guess we can imagine it. But even today, within the animation, the movies, the games, the chainsword is a very cool weapon. In reality, I don't really think it would be possible to make it functional. I think the sword is simply the sleekest, the most functional and the best perfect type of a weapon that was created. I mean, for those type of purposes, no need to add something to it, right? But does it look cool? Oh yeah, it does look cool.
Crafted from extremely heavy and durable ceramite. The power armor of a Space Marine protects him from any terrors he may face, be it the void of space itself to an inhospitable atmosphere. This armor, combined almost biologically with an already massive physique, makes the Space Marine an almost unstoppable fighting force. And
yeah, the armor is kind of combined with his body. It's not the same, but I can kind of see the similarities a little bit with the Iron Man, because his suit is connected to a piece of technology that is keeping him alive. So it's there is a stronger, bigger connection between the armor and between the body, between the person as whole. Yeah.
hell, if the armor doesn't protect them enough, they can always become a walking coffin like the dreadnoughts of the chapters are. What truly adds to it all, however, is the sheer difference in some of them. While a Space Marine in its own right is an indoctrinated freight train on legs, how they act can be quite different from chapter to chapter. The gene seed of a Primarch is not just helping them become big and strong, but allows them to gain certain traits from their forefathers. Everything from how they think to even slightly adjusting their physical appearance once it's been implanted, the gene seed can be the personality of an entire Space Marine. Take the Salamanders, for example. Salamanders have a predisposition to fire as a whole, and tend to be extremely large due to the size of their Primarch, Vulcan, and his enormous...
Oh, he's the one. Vulcan. Okay. Yeah, that's a cool looking figure. I had no idea actually he's the Primarch of the Salamanders. He has good physique. So it makes sense actually. Dark skin and red eyes. And a pyromaniac.
stature, whereas someone like Sanguinius, Primarch of the Blood Angels, share more vampiric features and more angel-like qualities. A gene seed is not just aspects of the Primarchs, but they are also flaws too. Magnus the Red and his Thousand Sons underwent something known as the Flesh Change, a horrifying mutation that...
Thousand Sons? Okay, I'm familiar with the name of Thousand Sons. I'm not really familiar with why are they so special, but Thousand Sons is like a very famous syntagm And I think there are a lot of videos on Thousand Suns as well. I really have to check them out. I had no idea that they were connected with Magnus the Red. I bet there's maybe one of the best backstories on the Primarch and his Marines are the Thousand Suns story. Looking forward to going into that. And also, I value your suggestions. I really do. I would not always accept everything that you suggest to me. Part 1, I have to make my own decisions. Part 2, I don't have the time to cover everything. But if I see that there's a great interest and really congruent, logical reasons behind why I should watch this or react to that, and that you already noticed that I'm interested in it, so that I would like to go into that direction, please do advise me. I read it. I really, so far, I think I've read every comment that I've had in my channel. Probably that won't be possible forever if the channel will continue to grow, but I try to read everything. Comment on any questions or actual questions that you have. But for example, I don't know, I was checking out the videos for Adeptus Sororitas, the Battle Sisters, Nuns with Guns. So I want to learn more about their backstory, what's up with them, because that's an incredibly interesting concept. And me as a priest, a Catholic priest, I mean, I love nuns. The sisters are absolutely awesome. All different kinds of nuns in general. There are really different factions of them with their specific, I don't know, perspectives on spirituality and working within the world, more contemplative or more active or apostolic. Doesn't matter. Dominican sisters, of course, the closest to me, but many others as well I'm connected with and I love them. And Nuns with Guns is such a cool concept and I really, really want to cover it. But there are a lot of videos, and a lot of those videos have like, what, 100,000 plus views on it. So which one to choose? Which one is the best? I don't want to watch half of them before choosing it. I want it to be a blind reaction. So I have to rely kinda on your suggestions in which direction to go. Okay, let's continue.
While it made them strong psychers, would affect their bodies so terribly that they would mutate away from humanity. Where other factions have inspiration for their culture from our real world, like the feudal Japanese of the Eldar or Egyptian style the Necrons, each Space Marine chapter themselves carry an inspiration. The White Scars are...
Okay, just a second. So the primary inspiration for the Eldar are feudal Japanese. I know that there is part of it inspiration, but if it's a primary inspiration, I guess that's the reason why I always, even long time before, I liked them in a special way. I remember Dawn of War 1, when it came out. I didn't play almost anything of it. I played just a little bit, but I have friends who played it and who played it extensively. The only faction that I kinda related to were the Eldars. I found them very cool. Maybe weak in a way, but very, very cool, very special. I had no idea why, but I always had a very, very strong leaning towards the Japanese culture, Japanese martial arts, because I practiced Japanese martial arts. Also, I watched tons of anime, read tons of manga. So I'm familiar with the culture. And the history, not so much with the language. It's actually sad that I've been immersed so much within Japanese culture and I've learned so little of it. But yeah, I like the connection. So the Eldari, I really want to cover more of them now, because if there is a connection that will be like explicit or even implicit that I can notice between feudal Japan and Eldari, I really want to cover it. I want to explore it deeper.
Are motorcycle riding Mongolian fighters. These space wolves are Norse Vikings. The Dark Angels are Knights of the Round Table, and so on.
Okay.
This moves into their fighting
Arthurian
style, and truthfully, there is no end to the characters and options when it comes to the Space Marines. Space Marines are the main symbol you see, and while many of them can be simply indoctrinated warriors who only care about conflict and can be quite boring, then you meet Dante, or Bjorn, or Argel Tal, or Karn, or Lucius, or Erebus. And then you discover the wealth of these characters and tools of war you can have. For 1100 years, I have fought and I have seen the darkness in our galaxy. I have seen the vileness of the alien and the heresy of the mutant.
Is that the time span between the Horus heresy and now? Or no? Was Horus heresy like 10,000 years ago?
I have witnessed the sin of possession, and I have seen all the evil that the galaxy harbors, and I have slain all whose presence defiles the Emperor. I have seen what you will see. I have fought what you must fight, and I have slain what you must slay. So fear not and be proud, for we are the sons of Sanguinius, the protectors of mankind. We are indeed the angels of death. Despite being the poster children for Warhammer 40k as a whole, the presence of a Space Marine is a rare sight for the countless trillions of humans across the galaxy. Seeing one of these monstrosities is like seeing something akin to an angel sent by the Emperor himself. These angels of death are the essential fighting force to bring humanity back under the unified banner of the Imperium.
Wow, the animation here, the fight scene is flawless. This is incredible.
Yet ultimately, the Space Marines are individuals torn from their families and conscripted to genetic modification and lifelong service for the dying Imperium. And though they are held in an almost holy light, most believe they are above and beyond the people they are designed to serve. Once designed as the protectors of humanity, they seldom view humanity as something worth saving, to the extent that it is a tiny, minute rarity, though not unheard of.
I think I can see a little bit of inaccuracy that Bricky here just said. And that's from my reacting to Hell's Reach. It's not that they see humanity not worth saving. Absolutely the opposite, unless they're chaos. They see humanity absolutely worth saving and worth fighting, but they see individual humans very often as not worth saving. They're very utilitarian in their practice. Unlike maybe some Space Marines or chapters, such as the Salamanders, who will go out of their way to save civilians and to even sacrifice themselves to save those who are less worthy within this frame of reference within the universe. So, yeah, there are trillions of people and not a lot of the Space Marines and not a lot of capable fighters as they are. So it would kind of make sense if we see it exclusively from the utilitarian perspective, you know? If we don't observe each human being with an intrinsic dignity and right to life and infinite value, yeah, if you don't look at it that way, of course you're gonna be going into the direction that most Space Marines are going in.
For a Space Marine to put a normal citizen above them in any way. For most Space Marines and even their Primarchs, they are only here to do a job. They are there to kill the enemies of humanity, and I would be remiss if I didn't add at least one more of my favorite quotes to the tail end of this section. "The time for speeches is done," said Rogel Dorn. "The first great test is here. My order to you all is simple, yet heed it well, and exert yourselves to see it done. They are coming. Kill them all." While the Space Marines are the spearhead of the Imperium's Great Crusade and also a major player in its warfare, there is a significant amount of importance that must be taken on their transport. What sci-fi universe would be complete without its navy? When you think of the navy or ships on the open sea, you think of something that is sleek, something mobile, and something pretty big. For perspective, the longest self-propelled ship in history was the TTC-Wise Giant, an oil tanker that was about 458 meters long, or over about 1,500 feet. This right here is child's play in the world of 40k ships. A ship that is considered to be an escort vessel in the Imperium is about 3 times the size of a Sea-Wise Giant, and the size of the ships only go up from there. Your most common ships are the cruisers. The light cruiser tends to average at about 2 kilometers long, or just over a mile in length, where the...
Is this the type of ship that we have as a rogue trader inside of the Rogue Trader CRPG. It looks the same, at least. I don't know if the model of the ship is identical, but if I do recall, it is something like 2 kilometers. Oh, this is even larger. It's like 4 kilometers with the prow, and I think for ramming, you can upgrade the ramming capability within the game.
Dictator class cruisers can be over 3 kilometers or 2 miles in length. The largest ships are your battleships, and they are tremendous. We're talking 5-mile long, half a mile high monstrosities that
5 mile long, that would be something in the span of 7.5, 8 kilometers long.
look like gigantic Gothic cathedrals and filled to the brim with weaponry.
Oh, that's why I like the architecture of it. Giant Gothic cathedrals. Yeah.
And not only are they filled with weapons, but they are also jam-packed with crewmen. Battleships tend to, on average, carry a crew between several thousand to several million, and they need every single one of those members because we don't have advanced technology for other things to pilot themselves or control themselves in a meaningful way because there's no AI.
Okay, yeah, we cannot use AI, and also the development of technology is extremely slow, if even non-existent. So yeah, it would make sense. That's awful. But come on, do you really need AI? You just need better software? I don't know. Or do they think it's not possible to have one without the other at this level of hardware that they're operating on, the enormity of the spaceships?
A lot of this stuff has to be done manually. Even the reloading of those giant batteries is a form of manual labor. And, of course, generally speaking, gliding through the stars is a very slow way to do things. And let's be honest, there can't be a science fiction setting without some form of hyperspace travel. This form of travel in 40K is less like going to Plaid in Spaceballs and more like going into Davy Jones' zipper dimension in SpongeBob.
Oh, now what? I suppose you're gonna show me. Oh, gee, that's very nice. Oh, what is this? Some kind of magic act?
This is because it utilizes the immaterial warp to do so.
Yeah.
Warp travel is handled by a navigator, which is an abhuman. It's a mutated human, don't worry about it. And they have a gene that gives them a third eye and the ability to help steer the ship through the warp, which, as we know, is hell itself and unreality.
And the eye of the navigators can definitely be utilized in combat.
Now, this might sound exceptionally dangerous, and that's because it is. Now, the ship does have protection in the form of a Geller field, though. Originally, I assumed the Geller field is what you think it is, a large force field stopping all manner of horrible things, like
By the way, that's Dune, the original movie.
demons from the warp tearing apart your ship. How wrong I was, though. So space travel through the warp basically involves riding on the Sea of Souls. Hell is real and you can surf on it. So you allow the current to carry you and the navigator to direct. But how can a current of souls and unreality carry you when it doesn't obey the laws of physics, time, or, again, reality? What a Geller field is not a force field, but a comatose Imperial psyker dreaming of reality. It is not a bubble.
What?
It is a force of reality being projected by mutant Sleeping Beauty to counteract the unreality of the warp that you can then surf on.
Okay. Yeah, it's imposition of one's will against the, I would not call it reality, but a dreamlike reality of the warp in which one is finding oneself. Something like that. I mean, of course, we will not ever be able to completely logically explain that, even within the imaginary setting that we're in. But that's kind of the way how the protection works. Because I know one's willpower is the most important thing within Warhammer. For psychers, at least, you know, but in general as well. You go crazy if you don't have it, and those who have a lot of it can also manipulate the reality within.
This, of course, is not a foolproof method of travel, and Geller fields can and do collapse fairly regularly.
Geller.
Being subjected to the warp itself without this Geller field is a terrifying prospect. In the best case scenario, your ship will be torn to shreds, but there are countless instances of ships being thrown out of the warp randomly throughout time itself. You leave for a 2-day mission and you come back 90 years in the past.
Yeah, that's some 90 years in the past. Is that possible? Are you sure? Is it possible to go to the past or just the future? Going to the past, yeah, I don't think it's even scientifically viable. For going into the future, yes, but not then returning to the past, no. The Argenta, Sister Argenta within Rogue Trader, that's kind of what happened to her. It was just a couple of days for her, but in reality, I think it was decades or something like that.
Maybe you feel like you're lost in the warp for a century and it's only been 45 minutes. And that is only if the waves of souls don't rip your ship apart or have demons arrive on it to do unspeakable things to the...
Yeah, but that's not going to the past. It's just that you're older and time has not progressed a lot. That would be the case, the first case scenario. And other would be that like it was 45 minutes for you and 100 years in real time. Yeah.
The crew. The Imperial Navy is an astronomically powerful force for the Imperium because the sheer volume of ships and guns on those ships create firepower that can sunder planets. This is all juxtaposed with the sheer backwater nature of these ships. While they are manned by crews of zealots, they are also operated with such a backwater tech, it completely confuses the reader. You see the long batteries of portside cannons that the ship has, and remember that AI is heresy in this world and that all the mechanics are utilized by lobotomized slaves. So how do they load these? Well, they have gun gangs, massive gangs of hundreds of people manually loading these cannons. These are genuine gun loader gangs that get into gang wars and squabbles. On the ship's bridge, you may find the captain himself.
That's not a captain. That's a crewmate for navigation, but he's not navigator. I forgot the name of the guy and his actual function. I'm sorry, but he's from the Rogue Trader CRPG. I know the face. Important character.
Hardwired directly into the ship's chair permanently to control it the best they can. Giant screens of hololith data fill the room, and sensors across the ship are just as likely to tell you information as a serf running up to you with a scroll of parchment is. You reach to a microphone to shout orders down a hallway as paper readouts tell you information of the enemy, and holy sigils and candlelit incense burners gleam your next move. While the
Oh, that was a jump scare.
Not a specific faction of the Imperium in the same sense and format of this video, it is what shepherds around the entirety of its armed forces. Every Space Marine Primarch had a flagship, and every strike cruiser and battle barge has a story to tell. But if there is a single thing that the Shield of the Navy does the best, it is to help support and supply the monumental forces of the Imperium. The hammer of the Emperor himself, the uncountable men and women of the...
Yeah, there are like trillions of them, right? They're just regular militiamen, well trained. They're like very good soldiers, but nothing on the level of Space Marines, yeah?
I don't care if these things have adapted to resist our las guns. If we can't kill them with our rifles, then we'll kill them with heavy bolters. And if we can't kill them with heavy weapons, we'll use grenades. And if grenades don't work, then we'll fight them with our swords and our knives and our bare hands. We'll drown them in our blood. That's what it means to be a soldier of the Imperial Guard. Now follow me. Charge!
Yeah, that sounds like Spartans, right? Or at least the fantasized Spartans that we like to think about. They were not truly like that historically, but Frank Miller's 300 type of Spartans. Yeah?
There is no better symbol of the might of the Imperium itself than the Astra Militarum, or as it is commonly known, the Imperial Guard. Though the Space
Astra
Marines take the
Militarum.
glory and stand as the visual representation of the Imperium, their numbers are dramatically thin and specialized in comparison. To reclaim 1,000,000 worlds, you need a countless number of troops willing to fight and die for your cause. The Imperial Guard.
Fun question, guys. If we would have a fight, a hypothetical fight, every Space Marine in existence against every Imperial Guard in existence, we have a huge fight between those two like factions. I know that they're allies, but still, if we pit ones against the other, who would win? The Space Marines or the Imperial Guard? Just through the sheer number of them? Or are the Space Marines so strong and so capable that the Imperial Guard actually have no chance? Is it as stupid as the... My question is stupid as the one gorilla against 100 men question, or does my question actually make sense? But I'm kind of interested.
Represents the imperial truth made manifest. Every year, the worlds of the Imperium pay a tithe in the form of soldiers to fight the good fight of the Emperor, and this number is impossible to pin down. Even saying billions would be a dramatic understatement. The sheer volume of soldiers serves as the fundamental backbone of the Imperium. 99.9% of battles fought by the Imperium are fought by the sundering might of the Imperial Guard. With the knowledge that the Space Marines are essentially sentient tanks, what do the members of the Imperial Guard have? If they're the might of the Emperor himself, are they not suited up in a similar way? No. Not really. No fancy suits, no biological enhancements, and basically no expectation to live. Once a regiment of Guard are activated, they are sent directly into battle with almost no expectations that they will survive. This is because, despite their training, their incredibly powerful armor, and extremely strong weapons that would crush any army of the modern day, they are so hopelessly outmatched to the things they will face. Sending a member of the Guard is throwing a rock at a nuclear bomb. However, where they lack in advancement, they make up for in sheer numbers, and their overwhelming force can be the difference maker in any deployment they face. Quantity is a quality all its own. If they do happen to survive, they will be sent to the next battle, and so on. Seldom do members of the Astra Militarum get old or retire, and those that do are truly to be feared. There's an old saying that the average lifespan of a guardsman is about 15 hours from deployment, and considering the sheer number of guardsmen out there in any given battle, that number is probably accurate. When several million of your pool of guardsmen die within the first few hours of combat because the orcs threw a moon at you, it can really screw the numbers.
That's what happened at Hell's Reach. One of the hive cities was destroyed with a huge asteroid over there. So I think he's speaking about that.
The soldiers of the Guard are conscripted and trained on an incredible number of worlds in the Imperium, and these worlds can impact their training and their combat style directly. The most famous visually are the Cadian shock troops.
They're the most famous ones, right? Cadians. And you guys love Cadians, I think. That's the name that was mentioned very often. The Steel Legions were the ones on Hell's Reach.
But other notable Guard factions include the gas mask-clad Death Corps of Krieg, the Rambo level of Catachan Jungle Fighters, and the Iron-Willed Mordian Iron Guard. This also helps them specialize against individual types of enemies. The Indigan Prefects are a special Guard regiment that came from a planet whose planetary governor, the leader of the planet, thought it was fun to collect exotic animals, which then crossbreed and then became the giant freight train-sized monsters destroying the planet. So the Indigan Prefects are specialized for big monsters. Hello, Tyranids. One particularly interesting officer in the Guard is the enforcement officer known as the Commissar, and they are one of the more visually striking members of a regiment. These are specialized Imperial officers and act as morale.
They look awesome. There's one Commissar, if I'm not mistaken, I also forgot his name, inside of the Hell's Reach that was so respected that even the Space Marines gave him due respect. and he has a record of fighting orcs for a couple of decades and surviving, which is almost non-existent within this world. He lost an arm in fighting one of the bigger orcs or orc bosses.
Officers. But instead of singing songs to the troops and providing hot meals, the commissars are there to make sure that the members of the regiment continue to fight to the bitter end. If a soldier does not meet the standards of the commissar, the solution is simple. There are trillions of other soldiers out there. We don't really need you. Combat fatigue? Headshot. Concerns about the conflict? Headshot. Fleeing the battlefield? You bet that's a headshot. Considering that these officers tend to be outside of their regiment, feelings on them can be mixed. And in fairness, certain commissars, like the esteemed Ibram Gaunt or Caiaphas Cain, tend to do a bit better with the whole people talking part. Because if, say, you were trying to tell a beefed up Catachan jungle fighter what to do, you might take a mysterious leave of absence inside a carnivorous plant. But no matter what I say, I don't think I can truly convey the sheer might of the Imperial Guard, so I'm gonna get a visual aid. Let's take a look at this image right here, right? This is the cover of the 9th edition Codex for the Astra Militarum, the official cover art. Your eyes may be drawn to the dark and brutal looks of some of the main members on the front and the gigantic orc they are attacking, but zoom out a little bit. There is no floor. There is only people, and behind those people are tanks, and behind those tanks are flying artillery shells. There are 2 enormous transport ships in the sky, and their ramps are down, and on their ramps are more people. The Imperium is described as having 1,000,000 worlds. 1,000,000 worlds. And
So quantity is quality. That's an argument for the Imperial Guard. If we look at the Space Marines, we could say quality is quantity. That's the argument for their strength. I'm even more intrigued who would be the ultimate winner within the Armageddon type of fight that would happen.
each one of them gives soldiers to the Imperial Guard for the tithe. On a given battlefield, in a given fight, foot soldiers number in the millions, tanks in the tens of thousands, and you have enough artillery to turn the night sky day. You have walkers and APCs and aircraft and horse cavalry and tanks the size of apartment buildings. You have drop troops and spec ops and rattling snipers and gigantic ogres that can't count to 4, but they can turn you into 4 pieces, and it just doesn't end. Humanity is a horde army, but
That's a funny thing. They can't count to 4, but they can turn you into 4 pieces. That's funny.
instead of a horde of bugs or rampaging orcs, it's a living wall of guns. At the end of the day, though he's been ferried through hell on a ship that's 10,000 years old to some godforsaken war-torn rock, though he deployed from high orbit with nothing but a grav chute, though he is one of 10 million men and women snatched from his homeworld to fight a war he barely understands, though he has been given a weapon that fires small suns and may annihilate him as he fires because the knowledge of how it functions has been lost, though his company is supported by tractor tanks that run on anything you can burn, though he wages war against the devouring hive mind, ravenous demons and hordes of hyper-advanced aliens with strange technologies and sorceries he never dreamed existed. No one will remember his sacrifice. There will be no records of his deeds, no glorious parades in his honor, and no remembrance of his name. All he will earn is a shallow, unmarked grave on a forgotten world untold light years from home.
I mean, it's kind of similar in our world as well. There's so many unsung heroes are there. And there were throughout the whole history. And maybe for sure some of the most epic things that ever happened in the history were done by people who went completely unnoticed. There's no one to sing their tales, sing their stories. I mean, how I imagine heaven, or even more than just imagine the specific faith that I have about heaven. I mean, it's of course perfect communion with God over there, and also perfect communion between each other, because we are all united by one thing, and that is God, united in him. We will have the complete picture about the whole history of everything that ever happened. We will be the observers of those epic stories, and we will have the whole eternity to observe them and to give glory to those who fought in those kind of battles. I'm very much looking forward to heaven with that perspective. Having eternity to enjoy most epic movies, maybe roleplay with my friends in the most epic of games that were inspired by those most epic of real events that happened, playing with those people who actually participated in those events. Yeah. So even though people within this life, within this passable world, may not remember all the fallen heroes, don't worry. Don't worry. There's someone up there who knows everything and who sees everything, who records everything. And I truly believe that if we end up with him one day, if we choose to end up with him, we will be partakers in all those glorious events.
Yet for all this thankless sacrifice, a guardsman is a man, just like you. He has no millennia-old genetic engineering, no prophetic leader, no miracles of faith. He has his lasgun, his orders, and those beside him. He is the Imperial Guard, and he will hold the line. In the end, the Astra Militarum, despite fighting for the honor of the Imperium, are their own form of a massive horde army where individuality does not matter. They are merely numbers to the Imperium, and the vast majority of the conflicts they are sent to are attrition-based battles that gain virtually no ground while countless millions die. Yet this makes them the most human. For the Imperial Guard contains normal people, people who are happy and sad, people who laugh and love, and in there are stories, because there is strength in facing the horrors of the universe head on with nothing but a rifle in your hands and a prayer on your lips.
Of course, that's why we can relate to them the most. I gained a much bigger respect to the Imperial Guard than I had before. I'm real glad for this. This was maybe my favorite part so far. Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot.
Armed with an innumerable amount of Imperial soldiers and Space Marines, the Navy begins its great crusade into the stars to rescue the stranded Primarchs and reunite them to their legions. But the biggest question needed to be asked was, what would they find? The age of strife lasted for thousands of years. If a civilization was still alive out there in the galaxy, what would they be like? The technological advancements of humanity prior to and during the Dark Age technology was unfathomable. It allowed them to spread through the galaxy with ease and allowed them to settle once inhospitable planets. These branches of humanity were provided with the vast knowledge of human creations and were given gigantic machines to make arduous labor and ease. The spreading of these massive colony ships was known as the Long March, and these ships would be retrofitted into settlements upon arrival to their new homes. Accompanying them were the gigantic pieces of farm equipment that served multiple purposes and the specialized pilots that could maintain them. They were not only able to tend the fields and do labor, but when interstellar communication was cut off, they also did a great job of protecting the colonists against both threats demonic and alien. Because of the significance of these machines, those that could pilot them were powerful enough to be considered leaders, and the upkeep and preservation of the machines and the lineage of those who could pilot them was imperative. These machines, over the thousands of years, would eventually be known as the
Imperial Knights.
He must be humble of heart, strong of arm, be savage in war, loyal to hearth, and follow deeds of glory. He must keep honor with all, banish cowardice from his doings, and bring his house no shame. He must serve the emperor and defend the Imperium, thus should a knight rule himself.
Yeah, that's a classic knight code, right?
The Age of Strife caused these colonized worlds to be cut off from the Imperium, and the reversion of these worlds resulted in the reverence for this farm equipment turned feudal, and the leadership that controlled the devices became viewed as a noble hierarchy. During the Age of Strife, exploratory fleets from Mars found plenty of these worlds, and it seemed the majority of them reverted to a similar state. Like King Arthur seeing Merlin himself, these feudal worlds welcomed the tech priests of Mars with open arms. The mutual relationship between the Admech and the nobility was beneficial. The Admech were able to secure more worlds for mining resources and potentially long-lost STC information, and the noble houses were provided with technological know-how and modifications from the Admech themselves. The suits became more and more specialized, and their history as mere pieces of equipment lost to time. What was once a tractor became a killdozer, and the Imperial Knights were born. Unlike other military aspects of the Imperium, the nobility of the Knight houses remains just that, a nobility-focused feudal hierarchy that swears fealty to either the Mechanicum or to Terra. Like the Knights in our history, once they swear fealty, they can be called to aid their respective allegiance in the heat of battle. The ones that swear fealty to Terra are led by the High Monarch, while...
Just a second. So they either swear fealty to Terra or to Mars. Okay. What about rogue traders? They are on the part of Terra, to whom they swear fealty? Or is that just the fringes of space, and that's a completely separate story that we'll cover later on? Because I'm just in my second chapter in Rogue Trader currently, but the Coronis Expanse, where I am at, basically there are worlds over there, like agriculture world, or very much like Admech type of a world as well. I haven't visited them yet, but I will soon. That are mine, so they swear fealty to me. Are there like nobility over there inside of those worlds that they swear fealty to me, or do they just swear fealty to Terra? And like the leader on Footfall in Rogue Trader as well, that's like a trade world, the Footfall. He's swearing fealty to whichever Rogue Trader is in control currently. Presumably, though, he ultimately swears fealty to the Emperor, even though he does dabble in Xenotrade. But yeah, the Inquisition kind of lets it go.
The ones with the Mechanicum are led by the Princeps. The ones with Terra might be sent
Okay, again.
The heat of battle. The ones that swear fealty to Terra are led by the High Monarch, while the ones with the Mechanicum are led by the Princeps.
Okay, Princeps. The one piloting the Titan was a Princeps Zara, yeah?
The ones with Terra might be sent directly to the front line of war, while the ones with the Mechanicum tend to be sent to protect the Forge world. And the heraldry of these houses is what you'd expect from a generic history of knights. Houses pledging allegiances here and there, your run-of-the-mill War of the Roses aesthetic. Except instead of ponies, you have gigantic death machines. These knights can't seem to be piloted by any old person, however. A member of the nobility of any given knight house must go through the ritual of becoming. This ritual involves them sitting on the device used to control the knight, known as the Throne Mechanicum, for a full night. What's wrong with that? I mean, sitting in a chair for a full evening sounds pretty great right about now. So a pilot cannot drive a knight. They can, but it moves about as effective as Ripley from Aliens 2, big, lifter thing.
Excellent movie, by the way.
It is, in a sense, a beast that must be controlled, and a pilot must merge with it. The mind of the noble is connected to the machine and must fight with the mental signatures and personalities of the prior pilots as well. Everything a knight experiences in battle is felt by the pilot themselves, be it the general movement in the battlefield or damage sustained by the machine itself. If a knight's leg is blown off in battle, the pilot could experience a broken bone in the same spot. The merging to the machine forever changes the mentality of the noble that experiences it. This connection reinforces a strong degree of nobility and honor in the pilot, and a desire to fight for the glory of their house until the bitter end.
Okay, so in a way it's like a spirit of the machine in there, but also the psychological stamp that was left by all the previous pilots of that ship as well, of that machine as well, all together combined, and it forces itself on your psyche. You have to be of incredibly strong will to handle all that pressure, especially during the combat, right? That's why it's not possible for most people to be the pilots of such huge machines.
As their ancestors' minds are linked directly to the knight. The size of these knights can vary, but generally speaking, they stand in the ballpark of 30 to 50 feet tall and are protected by a thick adamantium armor. Beyond that, they have their own unique ion shield generators that give them added protection, and when it comes to their looks, the most common pattern across the Imperium is the Questoris pattern, and is honestly the one you're probably thinking about right now. But there are also smaller versions like armatures and bigger ones known as the Dominus. As for a loadout, these guys are essentially a violent Mr. Potato Head. Battle cannons, Gatling cannons, heavy flamers, thermal cannons, up close and personal, how about a gigantic chainsword or a straight up gauntlet? And for that empty spot up top, screw it. More autocannons, maybe add some missiles. Whatever you can do to make it as over the top as possible, you gotta do it. A squire serves a knight serves a lord serves a baron, and a baron serves a monarch. So who does the monarch serve? He serves every subject, from the rudest serf to the members of the court. Chivalric fealty, when ideally practiced, is not a pyramid, but a circle. Ironically, on the surface, night worlds themselves...
It's very nice. I don't know where that quote is from, but that is kind of the point. Unfortunately, the corruption of that power usually happens. Sometimes you can see that today in the church as well. It's not like we don't have corruption within the church. There are people inside of the church, and people are weak, and some of them are downright evil. But the idea is that it should be like a circle. The pyramid structure has to exist, you know? That's how societies can function, can be governed, can be taken care of. But those on top have to serve those on the bottom. Otherwise, it's just gonna collapse and decompose with time. And in a way, I mean, Jesus Christ himself showed us with the example. He is the one at the top, the God Emperor, who came down, became a man, you know, took the corruptible body. So the master became a servant and lived as a servant and showed us the way how we should live as well. Not to remain servants, but to actually become masters. So that's completely radical and crazy the more you think about it. But we are meant for godhood, but we should be servants because God himself became one.
Are one of the least grimdark settings in the galaxy. Reverting to an ancient time with knights and peasants is almost an escapism from the techno hell of the modern Imperium. But this, of course, doesn't make it great for everyone. It sounds fun on paper to play a game of knights, but it's not so fun when you're the peasant of that world. For the knights themselves, the knights give their entire lives to the throne mechanicum, and their reality is not their own, as they have to hear the voices of thousands of generations of their ancestors controlling their actions and their lives for as long as they live. It's a strange dichotomy. When it comes to Warhammer, most to all jobs tend to be terrible. However, if there was one that could be considered enjoyable, it would be the pilot of a knight, or a princeps of their larger cousins. While it does contain an egregious amount of hardship to be a knight pilot, you do enjoy a wealth of privilege. A knight pilot is often an asshole who can back it up. The rich noble that, despite his braggadocious...
Is it with a specific reason why there are more images of female knights, female pilots of those machines? Or it doesn't matter, it's like 50-50?
His behavior is still very much him, and he will continue to be him. But knights are not the only thing that the Imperium found lost in the stars during their Great Crusade. Due to the circumstances of the Age of Strife, humans were changing and adapting to their new homes they were now isolated on. Some of these humans evolved over thousands of years to adapt to these areas, and they were known as abhumans. Many abhumans found their way into the Imperial Guard or other lesser positions in the Imperium if they were not wiped out immediately for being too different from their human counterparts. But their abilities and appearance vary from planet to planet, and one particular group of abhumans have made quite a name for themselves in the center of the galaxy.
Those are the Leagues of Votann, aka the Kin. AKA the Kin, okay, the Leagues of Votann. No idea who they are. First time I've heard
The origins of what will
Leagues
be
of
known as the
Votann.
kin start at some point during the Dark Age technology, where their ancestors left a planet that is very much Terra and went to the galactic core to mine it of its resources. They brought along with them everything that they would need for a long-term stay, most important of which were the incredible AI-based supercomputers. Be it guidance, technical or philosophical, schematics, or the ability to upload the memories of a deceased explorer to gather information from them, these computers became an essential part of their everyday life, especially considering that the galactic core is one of the most inhospitable places in the galaxy. It is an exceptionally star-dense location, full of abnormalities, black holes, and sentient hostile nebula. Whatever that last part means, it is not a safe and easy place to make a living, and this only got worse thanks to the warp storms during the Age of Strife. In order to adapt to this area, these travelers perfected a genetic makeup that made their future clones to be more adept to the area. These future clones would be shorter and more robust than their ancestors, and the need to procreate would be unnecessary because why risk messing up a good employee when you can just make a new one? These would be known as the squats, and they would all die, except for when they didn't. And now they are known by a different name. Most void-faring races have at least one cautionary tale of foolish explorers vanishing amidst its blazing stellar nurseries and strange anomalies. Yet for the Leagues of Votann, the galactic core has been home now for millennia. These squat humanoids would begin to establish themselves in the core, and
so they are an anomaly within this world, are they?
their goals will be the same as their ancestors. Rock and stone! But like, actually kinda, yeah. Whenever one of them would die, they would know that that sucker would need to be uploaded to the machines like their forefathers did. But the original purpose of these machines was lost to time. What was once a technical resource for them turned into a ritual known as joining the ancestors. And the fact that they were clones at this point meant that the same copy of the same individual would be uploaded countlessly.
So it's a combination like of the stormtroopers from Star Wars and the blue fellas from Avatar by James Cameron. You know, they're like bowing to the tree that holds the consciousness of all their ancestors. Is this like a technological combination of those two interesting paradigms?
The sheer overuse of these computers and the repeated uploading of redundant data has turned these once powerful supercomputers into your parents' computer after you installed LimeWire on it, and whose 50 Google Chrome tabs definitely contain information they will return to one day. So much corruption that these computers began to develop the makings of a personality of their own. These would be known as the Votann, and the kin, this dwarf-like abhuman of humanity, would revere them. The Votann still operate to this day, but the volume of corruption have made anything outside of their very basic functions highly unpredictable. They may not answer a question for centuries at a time, and if they do provide an answer or data, it has become so corrupted and so incongruent that it takes a literal kin wizard to comprehend it. The kin, much like the dwarves of fantasy, exist nowadays as a mercantile species that constantly work to mine and manufacture. However, their capitalistic desires are dangerous. The biggest crimes a kin can face are being lazy, unproductive, and breaking a contract. Stellar conflicts have broken out over hundreds of years due to the breaking of a deal. So if you signed a contract with a kin, you best stick to it. Because of this, the kin have been known to interact with other species in a fairly common manner. This includes humanity, who have met various members of the kin multiple times, but constantly considered them to be all a different species. Famously, the
Yeah, but if they're so malfunctioning, how come that they were able to persevere to exist through millennia? I mean, with time, there will be even more degradation happening. The softwares are not updating, but there's just more data updating there, and it's even more jumbled, and it's more chaotic. So after some time, there would be, obviously, a blue screen of death. So, yeah, the dwarves are so weird. By the way, I love the dwarven races within Tolkien's world, and of course within Forgotten Realms as well. Dwarves were my original characters that I loved playing. They're bulky, stocky, but very resistant and very unique. And almost no one takes dwarves. They are the least represented of the races. I always felt like that. I was the only one who would take a dwarf within the party.
Imperium know that the kin they referred to as the Squats were their own species and were wiped out by the Tyranids. Little did they know, they were still around. The kin are acutely aware of two things. The first is that the humans of the Imperium are deeply terrified of technology, so the sheer existence of the Votann is a secret as well as the truth. This extends also to the Iron Kin, sentient robots that are treated in the same esteem of flesh and blood kin, because kin is kin. The second thing they are aware of is where they're from. They are fairly confident that they are from Terra, and they know that if this secret was to be known by the Imperium, that the Imperium might want to take ownership of them and everything they've built. So the more alien they are, the better. Now, this sounds fine and good, right? What could possibly be wrong with these guys besides the hyper late stage space capitalism? Well, we have to go back to their creation. The kin are an entirely clone based race made from the computers that are exceptionally difficult to recreate. These machines, the Votann, are becoming more and more unpredictable and derelict. If anything were to happen to these machines, it would be a twofold ending of the kin. New kin cannot be reproduced, reducing their numbers,
right,
and the existing kin would have no further purpose because the end that awaits them would be non-existent. The horror of the kin civilization is that the entire purpose of their lives is to do the best they can at their duty and upload all they know to the Votann, their ancestor cores, join their ancestors. But doing so is actually the thing that is killing these supercomputers in the first place. The ancestors were dead, but through the first truths, their legacy continued. And though their eyes had shut long ago, indeed the ancestors were watching, not with a gaze from eons gone, but with the eyes of every living kin. Each generation was the embodiment of the ancestors cast anew by the Votann. The galaxy changed. Stars died, planets were destroyed, and civilizations fell. But as long as the Votann endured, the ancestors still lived.
Yeah, that's also, I mean, I can notice that uniting with the source, uniting with the first truth, one of the kind of corruption parts of Christianity, or not even just Christianity, just of our human natures and our drive to go back to the origins, to the roots, to the source, to unite with what they would say in New Age, like, or in the Hindu type of worldviews, with a universal field, universal consciousness, Brahman, or whatever. I mean, we want to unite ourselves with the source, to become one with it. And these guys want to do that. That's the original software, like the source with which they unite, and then they spawn again, and then reunite, and then they spawn again, right? Each time with more buggy software.
I do want to end this last bit with an enjoyable quote from one Kim. As you may have assumed, the Leagues of Votann are space dwarves with a corporate sci-fi motif, but they are still very much dwarves. They're squat, they're strong as hell, and they hold serious grudges. This time it's just more about your contracts than anything else. And so because of this, they might treat most things about how you would expect a capitalistic dwarf would treat things. You misunderstand, human. I am not here to debate. I am not here to compromise. What you see as yours, I am taking for my kindred. You want to bargain? Torek, unholster our means of negotiation. As the Great Crusade continued, humanity would find their missing Primarchs, reestablish the locations of all of their various worlds, and finally reclaim what the Emperor was always hoping for. But eventually, all the Emperor sought to build would be his undoing. His original attempt to have all of the Primarchs lead his great armies and usher humanity into the better ages would end up crumbling down. And we will learn about how the Imperium backslides and the horror of the modern day of 40k in part 2.
In part 2.
I will see you very soon. Thank you so much for watching.
And I'll see you very soon as well, Bricky, when I go into part 3 of my reaction, and that would be part 2 of yours. Now, we've done a lot this time, and everything was connected to the Imperium of Man. Imperium of Man, Adeptus Mechanicus, the other head of the ego, right? The Imperial Guard, which I liked very much, I have to say. Imperial Knights, like the Princeps, right? And the Leagues of Votann, the Space Dwarves. Okay, so I will not be going in depth now, commenting or saying something extra. I already pause and comment during the video. I think that's better than just watching silently and then commenting afterwards. Also, it kinda maybe even isn't fair for the original video maker. If I just put the whole video inside, I mean, I could even remove my face from it and then you just watch the video. No, go and see the original source. That's always the first and best thing, but most of you have already seen the original source and want to see me reacting to it. Okay, so farther down we will explore deeper the intricacies within the Imperium of Man, because that part is the most detailed part. Thank you for all the comments, thank you for all the suggestions, thank you for all the questions as well. I always try to answer them as much as I can, as soon as I can. And I'll see you guys in the next reaction, part 3 of every single Warhammer 40k faction re-explained by Bricky. God bless you, my friends, and goodbye.